To get asked about Caitlin Clark and Indiana, and I'm like, guys, like, just relax. Like, they're gonna figure it out. They've got to learn how to play together. You know, she's thrown into this league right away, and she's gonna figure it out. And she did, and she's gonna see all kinds of coverages. She's gonna see all kinds of matchups. And so for us, working on how to become a little bit more efficient.
Some fans are concerned about something Stephanie White said about Caitlin Clark's gameplay. But before you get too worked up, let's take a look at everything. Believe me, Stephanie White is an incredible coach, and she knows exactly what she's doing. This could be the best thing for Caitlin and the Fever's championship, so let's get started.
That the Indiana Fever are a title contending team for 2025.
Is it realistic to say that this team is a title contender in 2025?
I mean, I think on paper, certainly. You know, you look at it, and look, our goal was to bring in experience, to bring in players that can complement our big three. You know, I didn't know that we would be able to build the depth that we were able to build in year one. You know, I thought that was going to take a little bit more time.
Okay, Fever fans, take a deep breath. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Now, let's discuss what head coach Stephanie White said that made some of you ready to panic. She said that Caitlin Clark will have times when she plays off the ball, and all of a sudden, Fever fans are clutching their chests as if they had just been hit by a full court press. What do you mean she won't have the ball? Relax. No one is relegating Caitlin to the corner like a forgotten role player in a 2K simulation. All of this is part of a larger plan, one that could make the Fever even more dangerous.
Not just from a conditioning standpoint, but from a rhythm and timing standpoint. So that becomes the next challenge. But getting more efficient in everything that we do. You know, for us, moving her off the ball a little bit more so she's not getting worn out in game, just handling the ball 94 feet. And then we're challenging her on the defensive end of the floor as well, like being a better defender. You know, the best that for us as an opponent, you know, you want to attack a good offensive player by making him play on the defensive end, putting him through the ringer. You know, and so being a better defender, you know, and I think being more creative.
Let's dissect this reasoning. Caitlin Clark is a superb playmaker with unparalleled vision and handling skills. It may seem strange to hear that she won't always have the ball in her hands, like in a game without a single foul call. But the truth is that this is a clever strategy that might make her and the Fever even more deadly. Shifting her range is pure Steph Curry level disdain.
Saying Caitlin Clark didn't turn the ball over a bit too much, especially early in the year, but ironically, the turnover numbers did not tell the full story about her turnovers. There were games where she committed 9 turnovers, where 7 of them were quote-unquote good turnovers, 2 of them were bad, and there was games where she committed 5 turnovers and gave up 5 freaking...
Consider this. Stephanie White is playing chess, not checkers. When Clark has the ball, defense is already freak enough. But picture the choss when she runs off screens, cutting to the hoop or catching and firing from in this horrifying image. Clark dashes around a screen, intercepts a ball from Kelsey Mitchell, and scores 3 points before the defender can even react. Pure baskets, no wasted dribbles, and no triple teams, this shift makes it even more difficult to contain the Fever. Let's face it, have you all noticed how defense attorneys handle Caitlin? They act as though she owes them money the instant she steps foot on the court. If she is always the primary ball handler, she will constantly be subjected to pressure, traps, and defensive strategies designed to wear her down. Giving her off-ball time makes her look cleaner and helps her save energy for when she takes over, but it's not limiting her. Rather, it's making her even more dangerous when it counts most. Defenders act as though she stole their lunch back in middle school.
Like in our industry, if you're not a competitor, you're not going to last. And it doesn't have to be to win at all costs, right? It's just how you do what you do every single day. Like for me as a human being, like if you're leaving your shopping cart out in the middle of the parking lot, I'm judging you. You're not going to be on my team, right? Like you're not going to be on my team. If I'm watching you and you're on the end of the bench with bad body language and not being a good teammate, like I don't want.
Let's not pretend that this is a crime against basketball's past. The best shooter of all time, Steph Curry, spends a lot of time dashing through screens and playing off the ball, allowing teammates to set him up for open looks. Fever followers, I ask you to do one thing: trust the process. The Warriors established a dynasty with that strategy, so if it works for him, it can definitely work for Caitlin. Let's all relax. put away the pitchforks, and prepare for a season where Caitlin Clark makes defenders reevaluate their life decisions. Whether she has the ball in her hands or not, this is a win for her and the Fever. Caitlin Clark isn't being transformed into a spot-up shooter who hardly touches the ball. Rather, she's just adding another weapon to her already absurd arsenal, and if anything, this will make defenses even more miserable.
Anyone who watched the off-season workout footage of Caitlin Clark probably noticed the same thing. She looked like she bulked up a little bit. She looked like she got a little bit stronger. And that was confirmed by Fever coach Stephanie White. I mean, it was confirmed by our eyes, but she also said so in a Q&A with The Athletic, talking about the physical strength that Caitlin Clark added in the WNBA off.
It's important to note that Clark remains the primary ball handler and continues to lead the offense by dropping DS and pulling up from 35 feet as if it were her legal duty to take logo 3s each game. However, Stephanie White isn't expecting her to be a one-woman superhero who must do everything all the time. Instead, she's adopting a Michael Jordan strategy. When MJ initially joined the league, he tried to do everything. He would drop 50 plays, play lockdown defense, and then question why he was exhausted by the fourth quarter. Phil Jackson then appeared and suggested that perhaps it would be wise to not play like a career player with maximum stamina. That change made the Bulls unstoppable and prolonged MJ's career. Caitlin Clark's circumstances at Iowa were identical. She had to play every position: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, and even team spokesperson. She ran the offense, brought the ball up, made her own shots, and somehow managed to muster the energy to make long threes when it mattered most. Now that she has the opportunity to play smarter rather than harder, that will only make her and the Fever more dangerous. White isn't restricting Clark. Rather, she's raising her game to a completely new level.
And what was that conversation, if you can share any of that?
Yeah, I spoke with Caitlin last night, and I think just overall excitement. You know, I have been watching Caitlin play since she was an 8th grader, when I was coaching at the college realm and covering her games in college, and just an exciting time for me. Very excited to be working with her and this young team.
Not to mention, there's some pretty cool symmetry. You wore number 22 for the Indiana Fever. I mean, maybe it's too soon to say, but you could potentially be coaching the last player to ever wear 22 for the Indiana Fever. That's pretty cool.
It's very cool. I saw when they posted that today. I thought it was unique, certainly. She's a lot better, number 22. She puts the ball in the hole a lot.
That isn't sustainable in the WNBA. You can't go from MVP candidate to walking ice bath patient by averaging 35 points and 12 assists per night while being double-teamed by elite defenders. What is White's strategy? Just allow Clark to play off the ball occasionally so that she isn't exhausted by the fourth quarter. This will result in more games where she is fresh enough to dominate when it matters most, and less games when she appears to have just finished a marathon.
You know, and again, she's got a lot of self-awareness. And, you know, she figured that out, you know, right away. Like, I need to get stronger. I can't get knocked around as much. And so she's done a great job of getting in the weight room and really focusing on her areas that she needs to focus on in terms of strength, in terms of, you know, low center of gravity, you know, time under tension, like all of those things. You know, I think the next step is efficiency. Right? Like, not so many turnovers, you know, higher field goal percentages. She knows what's coming. I mean, you saw that throughout the course of last year. I remember.
And let's be clear, playing off the ball isn't a punishment. On the contrary, it makes Clark even more dangerous. Imagine her running off screens, catching quick passes, and launching deep threes before the defense even reacts. It's a nightmare for opposing teams. So let's all calm down. Nobody is making Clark into a glorified decoy. She's just developing, adding another elite skill to her already absurd arsenal. And believe me when she drops 30 pieces without exerting herself, because she didn't have to carry the entire offense for 40 minutes. You will all be grateful to Stephanie White for her longevity and efficiency.
Welcome to Indiana, Dawana. Welcome to Indiana. What I heard come out of your mouth is exactly why this signing, of all the other moves the Indiana Fever did this offseason, the DeWanna Bonner signing was the one that made me just get out of bed a little bit.
You have to ask yourself what people were thinking at this point when they questioned Stephanie White's strategy for Caitlin Clark. Here's the secret. White is playing chess outside while other coaches are still having trouble with tic-tac-toe. The Indiana Fever's off-season sheer brilliance, in contrast to former coach Christy Sides, who simply threw Clark on the court for 40 minutes every night and said, "Figure it out." White understood the assignment and made calculated strategic moves like a general preparing for battle. Her first move was to bring in Deanna Boner, a proven scorer, defender, and rebounder. The kicker is that White has already coached Boner before, so she knows exactly how to use her. White's moves have Caitlin Clark fans breathing with relief instead of screaming into their pillows.
Yes, and yeah, there's a narrative out there that Kathy made the call, all right? Kathy Engelbert. Oh, we got to make sure we get Caitlin Clark the championship, and I told you there's narratives floating. Number one, they're freaking out. Number two, the next thing you're about to hear is Caitlin Clark needs a super team to win a championship. So they're going to downgrade her status, and they're going to shit on her over that. It's already started. That's where they're going with this, folks.
But hold on, White also added Sydney Carlson, a seasoned guard who is a reliable ball handler in addition to having a strong locker room presence. You know what that means? The difference between elite coaching and survival mode coaching is that Clark can finally do something she rarely did as a rookie. Sit down and imagine that by the fourth quarter, rather than running on fumes, she can actually catch her breath, sip some Gatorade, and perhaps even check Twitter to see what Skip This is saying about her. While Christy Sides was essentially that friend who studies the night before the test and just hopes for the best, Stephanie White is creating a sustainable system. It's like comparing a Michelin-starred chef to someone who microwaves ramen and calls it homemade cuisine. White is putting Clark in a position to succeed rather than burn out.
Excited. The Fever, if you haven't been paying attention, they are really active in ensuring that Caitlin Clark and company have a true contending lineup next season. They have Caitlin Clark.
The greatest effect of these actions, because of how much she carried the team last season, Clark no longer has to do it all. If Indiana leads by a significant margin in the fourth quarter, Clark can now take a break rather than playing every second like it's Game 7 of the finals. This is an excellent example of load management. We would likely hear about Clark playing 48 minutes in a 40-minute WNBA game if Christy Sides were still coaching. In the meantime, White is handling minutes like an NBA coach guarding their star, making sure Clark remains healthy, productive, and poised to dominate when it counts most. This type of coaching is what creates championship teams.
Quarters and throughout 44 games. Like, we've got 4 more games than we had a year ago in the same time frame, right? No Olympic break. And so we've got to be able to get a rotation. And I think for me, that's one of the things I'm most excited about. 2 years in Connecticut, we couldn't find a rotation. Our starters had to play heavy minutes. And I think at times in fourth quarters or throughout the end of the season, you could tell that a little bit because our efficiency dipped. We've got a lot of great offensive weapons that we've got to put in positions to be successful. We've got to get better on the defensive end of the floor. And so now with the roster that we have, we got to challenge our coaching staff right now to find out what that is, because it's going to be different than I think what we had originally planned because of the personnel. So do I think we can be title contenders? Absolutely.
Fans of Fever, this is no longer the Christy Sides era. When Caitlin Clark played 40 minutes like she was the star of a one-woman Broadway show called Survive and Advance, the old tactic was essentially, hey, Caitlin, carry the offense, cover for the defense, and if you're lucky, we might set you a screen. However, Coach Stephanie White came on board, and all of a sudden, Clark had something revolutionary. By July, she had a real system in place, one where the star player didn't require an oxygen mask by halftime.
That the Indiana Fever did not have last season. Caitlin Clark had to play like 40, 44 minutes a game. Aaliyah Boston had to play way too many minutes a game. Kelsey Mitchell had to play too many minutes a game. And I personally did see that, like, before the Olympic break, it started wearing on them. And I can only imagine what the bench depth is going to do for the team.
Consider it like Steph Curry versus Luka Doncic. By the fourth quarter, Luka, who plays hero ball every night, appears to be carrying bricks in his shoes. Clark and the opposing fans are furious because Steph has a system of teammates that understand their jobs and have enough energy to wiggle his way into the playoffs. 1 Minute Clark is overrated and won't be able to stay in the WNBA now that a competitor is being developed. Abruptly, let's face it, Indiana is unfairly stacking the deck because the Fever are making wise moves while other teams treat the offseason like a clearance sale. Indiana is working to create success rather than merely wishing for it. So don't be shocked when the objections become louder as the wind starts to blow.
The new Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White made a drastic exclamation this week, and we got to talk about it. She was doing an interview and she flat out said, "If you don't return your shopping cart, we don't want you. We don't want those kind of people on our team. We don't want those kind of people in our locker room. We don't want those people at all. Return your shopping cart."
For the first time in a long time, fans of the Fever get to see a team with a real plan, and the haters keep complaining that Indiana isn't just building around Clark, they're setting her up to dominate. So, when Caitlin is still cooking in the playoffs while your favorite team is already on vacation, remember that you saw it coming. The Fever are playing chess, and the rest of the league better keep up.
By the way, Indiana's a small market. It ain't New York City, ain't LA, ain't Chicago. It's not the Skies, it's not the Liberties, it's not the Sparks. We're talking about the Indiana Fever, led by a girl that was playing at Iowa. It's producing the most watched WNBA games in over 2 decades.
Clark was a one-woman band trying to play guitar, drums, and trumpet all at once last season, hooping like a college student pulling a double shift with no breaks or breathers. Despite this, she managed to drag the Fever to the playoffs, which is risky for the rest of the league because any skepticism about Stephanie White's coaching is fading faster than a bad the offense is fluid, the ball movement is precise, and the defense. Let's just say teams are realizing that playing Indiana isn't just a casual jog anymore, but a full-speed sprint against a cheetah, is what makes this team go from survival mode to contender status. Some people believe that the Lynx and Liberty have too much firepower, but hey, there are also those who believe that. This season is going to be a movie fever, so get your popcorn ready since Blockbuster was unbeatable. The plain fact is that the Fever is in far better hands, and the takeover is happening. Stephanie White isn't only preparing for Caitlin Clark to succeed, she is improving the squad as a whole, and what could be more risky than an elite? Caitlin Clark is a seasoned professional. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. There are more videos on screen right now. Caitlin Clark's opponent best be prepared because Indiana is coming and they aren't here to play nice.